Hi everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we're doing our Math Roundtable recap from August 6th, 2020. So whether you missed us in person or you just want to review what we covered, let's get started. So just as a reminder, every beginning of Math Roundtable, we go over these same rules or steps for following in solving a word problem. So the first thing you want to do is highlight or underline or circle, or at least just identify what the important information is in a word problem. And once you've identified that information, you'll be able to determine which operations you'll need, and you can write that out using the numbers and operations. So instead of having a word problem, you'll have a more traditional math problem to solve with number sentences. So with that, you'll be able to solve the problem and apply that to your multiple choice answers. So let's get started with word problem 1. It says the ratio of boys to girls at the dance was 3 to 4. There were 60 girls at the dance. How many boys were at the dance? So a couple things we need to know. First of all, we're working with a ratio. And when I think of ratios, you always remember that the 2 dots in the middle, the colon, you say it like 2. So 3 to 4. And whatever order the thing that it's comparing or showing is in, it's the same order for the numbers. So if it says boys to girls and the number is 3 to 4, that means for every 3 boys, there are 4 girls. So make sure you keep those numbers in order. Now, that's the ratio. So it shows us if we had boiled it down to just a sample, this is what the sample would look like. But in reality, it wasn't just 3 boys and 4 girls at the dance. We know from this that there were 60 girls at the dance. So it wants to know how many boys were at the dance. So in order to solve this, we're going to create a proportion. Now, our proportion looks like this. 3 over 4 equals B over 60. Now I put a B there for boys, and the reason boys is on top is because we know the original ratio, 3 represented how many boys. So you want to make sure that the 3 and the B are next to each other and the 4 and the 60 for the 60 girls are next to each other. Now, to solve this, all we have to do is cross multiply and divide. So we're going to multiply the numbers across from each other diagonally there, 3 and 60, and then divide by our other number, which is 4. 60 times 3 is 180, and when we divide that by 4, we get 45. So that means that there were 45 boys for all the 60 girls, and that ratio boils down to 3 boys for every 4 girls there. So we can double check that by plugging that into our B up above and make sure that adds up, that those 2 fractions are equal. And indeed, our answer is 45. For word problem 2, let's take a look. It says, Betty grew 3/4 an inch over the summer. Her friends also measured themselves and found that Susan grew 2/5 inch, Mike grew 5/8 inch, and John grew 1/2 inch. List the friends in order of who grew the least to who grew the most. So obviously our numbers are going to stand out here. We'll want to identify all of the fractions of an inch that everyone grew over the summer. Then we'll also want to make sure that we keep those closely tied with the names, because in the end we have to answer by the names. So the idea here is to order these fractions from least to greatest. So when we put them in order, one thing I like to do is think about half as kind of my middle mark. And I can think about what's smaller than half and what's larger than half. So if I'm thinking John is a kind of the middle mark because he grew 1/2 an inch, I want to look at my other fractions and think, which of these is less than half and which of these are greater than half? So when I put the fractions in order, I can see 2/5 is less than half. And one quick way to identify that is to look at the top number and the bottom number. And if you think about what half of the bottom number would be, so for example, for the number 5, half of 5 would be 2.5. Think $5, $2.50 is half. So 2.5 will be half of 5, and 2 is less than that mark. So that means it's going to be under half. Same thing, if I looked at 5/8 or 3/4, 4 is half of 8, and 5 is greater than that. So it's going to be greater than half. 2 is half of 4, and 3 is greater than that. And so 3/4 is going to be greater than half. Now, right away, I wouldn't even have to figure out which one is bigger, 5/8 or 3/4, because I can look at my options on this multiple choice selection, and I can see that only one has the right answer for those first two, because we know that 2/5 and 1/2 are in the right order there. So 2/5 is Susan and 1/2 is John. So right away, I see letter D is the only one that has those two in the right order. So I could even stop here. But if I have a little bit more time and just want to double check my work, I might also go through and say, okay, 5/8 and 3/4. Well, we could get a common denominator of 8 there. So we'd keep our 5/8, but we'd change the 3/4 to an equivalent fraction with the denominator 8. So because I would have to multiply 4 by 2 to get 8, I'll also multiply 3 by 2. That'd be 6/8. So if I wanted to compare them using those common denominators, I can still see that 6/8, which is equivalent to 3/4, is larger than 5/8. So they are in the correct order there on the screen, and it would go Susan, John, Mike, and Betty. So we can see the correct answer is D. For word problem 3, it says, Robert brings a painting to the framing store to be framed. He chooses a frame with an 8-inch by 10-inch opening. The painting is 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. A mat will be placed around the painting to fill the 8-inch by 10-inch opening. If the painting is perfectly centered, what will the width of the mat be on each side of the painting? So with this one, we get an image, which is really, really helpful. So if you don't have this image on a test, I'd encourage you to make your own image so that you can more easily see what they're talking about and kind of create that visual for yourself. Now, what we're trying to measure are where the red arrows are. What's the width on either side of where the picture will be? And so to figure that out, we need to think about the width measurements, which are 4.5 and 8. Now, to figure out what the mat will be, that space around, I need to take out what the picture in the middle will be. So I need to find the difference between these two measurements. So if I do 8 minus 4.5, which is 4.5, I get 3.5 or 3.5. So 3.5 is the distance of both of the sides put together. Now we know both those sides are equal, but the final answer we're supposed to get isn't both of them put together. It's what the width will be on either side of the painting. So we need to check out how we would split that. And because there are two sides, we're going to split it in half. So 3.5 divided by 2 is 1.75. And another way to say 1.75 is 1 3/4. So the answer we get is 1 3/4 inches. For word problem 4, a long distance call costs X cents for the first minute and Y cents for each additional minute. How much would a 5-minute call cost? Now for this one, I need to look at my variables, X and Y, and I also need to look at how much time we're spending on this call, which is 5 total minutes. Now 1 minute we know is equal to X. And then each additional minute, so in our case, these 4 additional minutes, because we have 5 total, so we've done 1, we have 4 more. Those 4 additional minutes will each cost a value of Y cents. Now we don't know what X and Y are, but that's not what they want us to solve in this problem. They want us to be able to create an expression that will help us to plug in other numbers to be able to figure out what a value would be, maybe for any different situation. But right now we just need to use the variables given and the numbers given. So with that, if I combine my 1 minute with my 4 additional minutes at 4y, I'm going to add them together and I get X plus 4y. All right, our last word problem for today says, Easy Rider taxi service charges a pickup fee of $2 and $1.25 for each mile. Luxury limo taxi service charges a pickup fee of $3.25 and $1 per mile. How many miles need to be driven for both services to cost the same amount? Now you'll see we have a variety of answers here, but the first thing we need to do is create expressions for this so that we can figure out what the different, expressions are to figure out the cost of taxi services. So let's put that together. For Easy Rider, we have the $2 fee, which everyone pays just to get picked up. That's it. If you get picked up, you automatically pay $2. Now, we also have to pay for mileage though. So we need to add in $1.25 for every mile, which means we're gonna multiply the number of miles by that $1.25 and add it to our initial $2 fee. Now, for luxury limo taxi service, we have $3.25 just to get picked up, but then we pay an additional $1 per mile. So I have 1 times the number of miles. Now, to simplify, you could just write the letter M, because 1 times any number is just going to be itself. So we don't have to write 1 next to the letter M here, but I've done it just for clarity in this situation. Now, the reason I put an equal sign there is because I need to find out how many miles it would be if these two equations were equal, that we paid the same amount. So if I make these an equivalent, not fraction, excuse me. So if I make these equivalent, I will be able to see and solve them to figure out which value of miles works here. Now, if you are feeling a little uncertain at this point, one option that you have is to just plug in your option answers here. So A, B, C, and D, you can plug those into the letter M and then solve on both sides and see if they come out equal. That's a longer process though, and one thing you could do is just solve this as an equation with variables on both sides. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to get my M on one side by itself and get my numbers on the other side by themselves. So you can see I have 1M on the right side and I have 1.25M on the left side. So I'm going to try to move my 1M over and get it off of the right side and move it all over to the left side. So you'll see I subtracted 1M because if I want to get rid of a plus 1M, I need to do the opposite. So minus 1M on the right side, and anything I do on one side of the equal side, I have to do it on the other side as well. So you'll see the minus 1M on both sides. Now I can only subtract 1M from other numbers combined with the letter M. So if you think about 1.25 minus 1, that's the same thing we're going to do in 1.25M minus 1M. We're combining the like signs there. So here we have 2 plus, and we get 0.25M, right? Because we just took away 1. 0.25M equals 3.25, because they've canceled out on the other side. Now, I see that I have a couple of regular numbers with no variables that I can move together. So if I see a positive 2 over on the left side, I'm going to say, okay, the opposite would be minus 2. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So positive 2 minus 2 cancel out. That leaves us with just 0.25M. And on the other side, 3.25 minus 2 equals 1.25. So now I have it simplified so that all of my like concepts are together here. So the last thing I need to do is just divide by 0.25. So you can see here, 0.25M is multiplied together. So the divide is the opposite of that. So if I divide by 0.25 on both sides, 0.25 goes into 1.25 5 times, and it leaves me with M on the other side, which means that in order to make these equations equal, I know that M has to equal 5. Now I can double check this. I could plug M into my original equation up top and make sure that it works. And indeed it does. So our answer would be 5 miles. Thank you so much for solving with me today. I hope that you learned something new and that you'll join us for another Math Roundtable some other week. You can check out the Helms Academy by subscribing to our YouTube channel below, checking us out on Instagram and Facebook, or you can look at helmsacademy.org.